a whole new movement towards better habits led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code SCARY to get a free gift with your journey pack. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code SCARY, or scan the QR code on screen to get a free gift with your order today.
Hi, witches. I'm Blair Bathory, and this is the Something Scary podcast. Thank you so much for being here, whether this is your first time or you're one of the brave souls who join us every week. It's officially wedding season, and love is in the air. So while many gather to celebrate the nuptials of family and friends, there are those that aren't so blinded by love. Some feel the sting of lovesickness, while others bear witness to the haunting grip of obsession. In this season of vows and eternal bonds, beware the darkness that lurks behind the veil of affection. Powerful emotions that might eat you alive. First, jealousy leads to murder, followed by a mother's endearing love. Then, a ghostly gathering. Finally, in our featured story, a tragic wedding day mystery. Before we get to our stories, I wanted to say that we love hearing from you. The comments, the story ideas, the updates. Please keep them coming. And if you have a story you'd like to share, please send us an email at somethingscary@snarled.com. Truth is always stranger than fiction. And sharing the true stories of real people who have had experiences with ghosts, hauntings, or the supernatural is what helps make Something Scary so popular. Please take a minute to drop us a note on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you prefer to tell us what you think. I'm always watching. It's another way you can help Something Scary continue to grow, and it only takes a minute. Thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful for the support of all of our listeners. So, want to hear something scary? Dark spells and wedding bells. Being constantly happy for others isn't always as easy as it sounds, especially when we feel like we are attending wedding after wedding. And if you're always the bridesmaid, you might one day feel like you have had enough and something inside you snaps. Like in this story inspired by Colin Austad. Tara was tired of always being the bridesmaid. So far, she had been one for all of her friends' weddings, all of whom had got married within 6 months of each other. She was also tired of standing at the altar with a fake smile plastered on her face, watching her friends walk down the aisle in their wedding gowns like princesses from a fairy tale. She thought she had found love with her last boyfriend, an accountant named Tom, who she met online. He seemed nice, funny, and his messages to her were filled with compliments and promises that they would be together forever. But that illusion blew away like a cloud of smoke when it came time for them to meet in person. The first few times he canceled at the last moment, blaming a family emergency or a car problem. Still, his messages continued to carry the hint of a promise that they would eventually meet. The final straw came when he stood her up for the 6th time, saying that his grandmother was sick and he had to be there for her. This enraged Tara because he had messaged her about his grandmother's death several weeks ago. After she had deleted the dating app, Tara promised herself that she wouldn't give up on finding love, but that she'd try a more traditional route. She started by asking her friends if they knew anyone that was available. This again led to many hollow and empty promises that they would ask around, but they never got back to her. Sometimes she even wondered if they were secretly laughing at her behind her back whenever they went out to dinner or a club. On the few occasions a guy did buy her a drink, they always did so when she had to step away to the restroom. This made her uneasy that they might have put something in the drink, so she would refuse. When her best friend JD announced that she had gotten engaged, Tara felt something inside of her break. It was as if the floodgate of rage had opened, coursing through her like poison, and it was all that she could do to keep her mask of happiness firmly in place. She hugged her friend and wasn't surprised when she was asked yet again to be a bridesmaid at her wedding. As the weeks went by, Tara fought against the urge to chuck her phone at the wall every time she got a text from JD, showing her the latest dress she had found. She tried to be happy for her, but the rage festering inside her made that impossible. It was then an idea formed. If JD was going to get her happily ever after, then so was Tara. The day of the wedding, Tara texted JD and asked to meet her early at the church to go over a few last-minute details. Tara arrived before JD and hid in a small closet, waiting for the bride to arrive. When she did, Tara texted her friend that she had her dress and was worried about a small rip that she had found. "Where are you?" JD texted. "I'm in the back room. This rip is bigger than I thought. Come quick," Tara texted back. The minute the door opened and JD stepped into the room, Tara jumped out with a knife in her hand. She slashed at the bride, cutting her face. JD screamed in both fear and pain as Tara tackled her to the ground and raised the knife high over her head. The knife plunged into her friend's chest and blood splattered everywhere. Again and again she struck, letting out all of the rage that had been pulling inside her like the blood boiling in her for months. Her arms were shaking as she got to her feet and stood over the now still body of her friend. It wasn't until she heard the guests entering the church that she knew she had to act quickly. As she managed to drag JD's body into a closet, she set to work on pulling on her friend's wedding dress. It was a bit tight, but she managed. She quickly did her hair and makeup. Then she lowered the veil. There was a knock at the door. "JD, sweetie, are you ready?" It was JD's father, ready to walk his daughter down the aisle. "Uh-huh," Tara called out carefully. She didn't want him to get suspicious before the big moment. When she was sure that everything was perfect, she opened the door and stepped out to greet her new life. As she walked down the aisle with JD's father lovingly holding onto her arm, she wondered what the reaction would be when the groom lifted the veil to find his new bride. She smiled as she gripped the knife under her dress and waited for those words she had been longing for so much. "You may now kiss the bride." Have you ever been a bridesmaid? Was it a wonderful experience or its own kind of horror story?
Have you heard that the flavored air category is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits, led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to soda, Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint and orange vanilla, which I personally always go for the orange vanilla. It's really good. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code SCARY to get a free gift with your journey pack. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code SCARY, or scan the QR code on screen to get a free gift with your order today.
The path to true love never runs smoothly, but sometimes there are bigger things at play standing in the way of a happy ending. Like in this story inspired by Divyanshu. For weeks, Sammy's diary entries were filled with encounters with a mysterious woman. He described her in vivid detail, a figure he often spotted in the park late at night, cradling her baby girl under the moon's watchful gaze. He found her beauty captivating, ethereal even, and felt inexplicably drawn to her from the first sighting. As he observed her, Sammy couldn't shake the feeling that there was something otherworldly about her. She was enchanting with her caramel skin, her dark, serpentine braid, and her enchanting amber eyes. Yet she remained aloof, interacting with only her child, whom she cherished with unwavering affection. Sammy finally approached the woman one night as he passed through the park after his late shift. He found her, as usual, sitting on a bench under a tree. He carefully approached the woman, introduced himself, and told her that he lived nearby. He told her he often walked through the park after work and had seen her sitting alone with her child. He expressed concern, hoping that the woman would speak up. But despite his best efforts, he was met with brutal silence. He decided to leave, but not before telling the woman his address in case she needed any help. When he was walking away, he glanced at the woman and found her intently looking back at him. After a few more interactions, the woman opened up, revealing her name was Vishaka. Her husband had left her after the birth of their baby. She said that she worked in the market nearby, earning just enough to keep her and her child alive. Before long, they felt more comfortable with each other. Sammy would bring treats for the child and would chat with the woman. Both felt a spark between them, until one day, Sammy decided to express his true feelings. Fearing a heartbreaking rejection, he was both shocked and ecstatic simultaneously when Vishaka also affirmed her love for him. Soon after, they were holding hands performing their wedding vows around the holy fire, promising to love and serve each other till the end. Months passed by, and they were living the happiest life. Vishaka always expressed her gratitude and respected her new husband. She cared for both her child and Sammy and was a wonderful wife and mother. But as time went on, Sammy noticed a shift in Vishaka's behavior. She carried the child everywhere, always cradling her little girl and no longer giving him the attention he'd become used to since the wedding. One night, Sammy woke up to a sound coming from downstairs and went to look for the source. There, he saw Vishaka looking out of the window, her face a web of worry. Suddenly, she started to glow, a bluish hue emanating from her under the moonlight. A gasp escaped him. Vishaka turned to look at him with a guilty expression, as if she'd been caught stealing something. Her entire body glowed with the most otherworldly glow, rendering her husband dumbfounded. Finally, she spoke. "You were not supposed to be here. You were not supposed to see this. I love you, but I can't change my destiny or what I am." She hugged him, and although very confused, Sammy told her that he would always be there for her. He looked at his wife, still glowing with the most enchanting aura, tears flowing down her cheeks and dropping onto the wooden floor like shiny pearls. He listened as Vishaka said, "I'm sorry," and suddenly felt a sharp pain on the back of his neck as if something had pierced him. Soon, darkness overcame him, and he found himself waking up in bed with a stinging pain on his back. He leapt up quickly and raced downstairs where he left Vishaka, and the sight his eyes met left his blood cold. A large, scorpion-like monster was in the corner of the room with the lifeless shell of his wife on the floor. The creature then began to lift the cradle in which the child was sleeping with its pincers. The sight terrified Sammy, and he quickly picked up a table and, following his instincts, threw it at the monstrosity. The creature grunted, but the impact had barely scratched it. It picked up the baby girl and placed her on its back before scurrying off into the next room. Fear of the horrors the creature would unleash upon the innocent little child flooded Sammy's mind, the horrifying thoughts raising his adrenaline. He raced into the kitchen and picked up a sharp knife and a fire poker on his way out, then followed the scorpion monster into the living room. There, with a swift leap, he jammed the fire poker into the creature's side and quickly took the child from the creature's back. Sammy tried to escape, but wasn't able to make a run for it as the creature coiled his tail around him. With a last hope, he swung the knife and chopped off the creature's tail, then sped to the main door. He stopped, however, to take a look back at the creature when its blood-curdling shrieks of pain turned into a low, human-like soft moan. And the sight left him horrified and confused. There, in the middle of the living room where he had just battled a monster, lying in a puddle of gore, was his wife. Blood gushed from the fatal wound on her side. The reality of what he had done struck him. He carefully placed the child on the couch and went to his bleeding wife. Through tears, he asked her all the questions piling up in his mind and tried to pull her into his arms and take her to get help. But with her last breath, she asked him to bring the child to her so that she could embrace her daughter for the last time. As her dying wish, Vishaka asked Sammy to take good care of her daughter and always keep her safe. With these words, she died in her husband's arms with her baby in her lap. Heartbroken, he carried the crying child, trying to console her. As he passed by the window, the child's body also glowed with a bluish aura under the moon's light. And at that moment, he realized the child was a mythical creature, the Vereshchika, just like her mother. With this realization, he promised his dead wife to protect her daughter from everyone and guide her when she came to learn about her true self. After much research, Sammy discovered the Vereshchika, meaning scorpion in Sanskrit. These are women cursed to take the form of a grotesque scorpion and fulfill their hunger by feasting upon the flesh of living beings. They roam at night to seduce a mate and make their progeny grow. After that, they kill and eat them. They glow a bluish color when rays of the full moon fall on them, forcing them to molt their skin, after which they have to kill something with their venom within a few hours or else they would become insanely ravenous, then die as the venom leaked into their own body, resulting in an excruciating death. Despite these gruesome facts, they have great maternal instincts and would do anything in their power to protect their offspring, going as far as sacrificing themselves to feed their offspring. Vereshchika are often depicted carrying their babies on their back, waiting for someone to fall in their trap. Learning these facts, Sammy was heartbroken to know that on that fateful night, his wife was just trying to protect him and her child from herself, in fear that she would go insane and would hurt her loved ones. Frightened for what awaited for his stepdaughter, Sammy felt helpless, but knew that someone would accept the child for what she was and love her, just like his love and affection changed his wife, until the lure of the full moon had become too much to bear. Have you ever met your soulmate? And what would you do to keep someone you love safe? Would you risk your life for them? Wedding parties are often a time for music and dancing, feasting and indulging as we toast the happy couple. But when the celebrations seem to emanate from the most unlikely of venues, it might be best to stay well away. Like in this story inspired by Kaushi. In the center of a tiny village, nestled amidst the rural landscape of northern India, stood the family house of the Chows. It was in the mid-1970s, a time when electricity hadn't yet found its way into the village, leaving the night cloaked in darkness, lit only by the flickering glow of a kerosene lamp. Within the walls of this seemingly ancient dwelling lived the Chow family, a large group of people bound by tradition and the ties of blood. While all of the family got on perfectly well, Arna, the youngest of the cousins, always felt a bit suffocated, not only by the constant presence of her aunts, uncles, siblings, and cousins, but by the oppressive heat. On one particularly sweltering summer night, as the stars blinked above, Arna sought respite from the heat. She snuck up onto the rooftop with her pillow, figuring she could at least get some air. To her surprise, she wasn't alone. Her mother, also seeking a bit of solace in the open air under the vast canopy of the night sky, was up there too. As the stillness of the night enveloped them, just as Arna began to drift into the realms of sleep, a distant sound pierced the silence. It was faint at first, barely discernible, like a whisper carried on the gentle breeze. But as moments passed, the sound swelled in volume, growing louder and more distinct with each passing second. It was the unmistakable melody of wedding music, drifting from the direction of the abandoned houses behind their own. Arna's heart quickened with unease. She knew for sure no celebrations could possibly be taking place in those derelict ruins. Attempting to dismiss the creepy symphony as a figment of her imagination, she turned to her mother, seeking reassurance in her presence. But her mother's expression betrayed a hint of trepidation, her eyes reflecting the same gnawing doubt as her daughter's. With a trembling voice, Arna questioned her mother about the source of the haunting melody that now permeated the night air. At first, her mother attempted to dismiss her fears, attributing the phenomenon to mere trickery of the mind in the darkness of the night. But when the music continued to swell, her mother relented, her voice heavy with the weight of ancestral lore. She spoke of the ghostly wedding that was said to occur in the abandoned houses, a spectral celebration that lured unsuspecting souls to their doom. According to the tales passed down through generations, those who chanced upon the ghostly festivities risked being drawn into the otherworldly revelry, never to return to the realm of the living. Despite the ominous warning, Arna's curiosity was piqued. She couldn't resist the urge to investigate. Once she was sure her mother was fast asleep, she quietly slipped away from her and crept towards the source of the haunting melody. As she approached the abandoned houses, the music grew louder, its enchanting strains pulling her deeper into the darkness. With each step, her heart pounded in her chest, anticipation mingling with fear, but also excitement at what she would find. At first, she only caught glimpses of the beautiful clothes of the guest, shimmering in the moonlight. She had to get a better look, but as she drew closer, she also saw faces, or more accurately, what should have been faces. Horror washed over her as she realized the truth. These were not living, breathing guests enjoying a typical wedding celebration. Instead, they were just as her mother had described, monstrous apparitions, their forms twisted and grotesque. Their faces were gaunt, some with missing eyes and patches of skin falling away like rotted fruit. Several had gaping mouths frozen in silent screams, while others reached out with skeletal hands, beckoning to join them in their macabre dance. And then, it happened. one of the apparitions locked eyes with Arna, its gaze piercing through the darkness filled with a chilling hunger. It seemed to be coming for her, its ghastly form moving closer with each passing moment. Terror seized as she stumbled backwards, fleeing from the ghastly sight before her. She raced back to the safety of her family's home, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she sought refuge from the nightmare that lurked in the darkness. From that night on, Arna never ventured near the abandoned houses again. The memory of the monstrous apparitions haunting her dreams for years to come. And though the ghostly wedding continued to cast its eerie spell upon the village, she remained safely ensconced within the walls of her family's home, forever weary of the danger that lurked beyond. Have you ever heard mysterious music playing at night? Did you ever attempt to discover where it was coming from? This week's podcast stories were edited by Sarah Lukasiewicz, narration by Blair Bathory, audio edited and mixed by Fitz Harris, additional audio editing by Calvin Linderman, produced by Anna Villalobos, executive produced by Gail Gilman, music by Sapphire Sindalo and Calvin Linderman.